Hey everyone, this is Supervisor Ed Lachterman, and this is Your Town, Yorktown. Today I'm joined by our Superintendent of Highways, David Paganelli.
Supervisor.
David, thank you for joining us today. So, Dave, the Superintendent of Highways, how do you get to be the Superintendent of Highways for the town of Yorktown?
A lot of people don't realize that Superintendent of Highways is an elected position. Oftentimes they'll confuse the Highway Department with the DPW, which is an appointed position. Right now, about 86% of highway departments in New York State are highway departments. The bigger cities tend to have DPWs. So I'm an elected official, and every 4 years I run. And this year I'll have the pleasure of running with you, first time ever.
Yes.
In the 12 years, 2 years on the town board, 14 years that I've been running. So, you know,
Looking forward to it.
me too.
Yeah,
It's been a great relationship so far. Enjoy, having our back when the time comes, and you are the money man. So,
So you're going to be nice to me regardless.
oh, absolutely.
Well, I'm just the gatekeeper. Our town supports our different departments. You do have a budget line that comes through the tax dollars, and you do a lot of work with it. I don't know if people understand what our highway department does.
Probably not.
Yeah, so most people think that you pave roads and plow snow, which you know what, you do quite a bit of that.
We do a lot of that, and that falls under our black roads in the winter and black roads in the summer. That's what we feel our residents expect, demand and rightfully expect, that, we should keep our roads safe. And, but in addition to that, we have over 5,000 catch basins. Yorktown has an aging infrastructure, which, needs to be maintained. So certainly we could outsource a lot of drainage work and things like that, but that's not, beneficial to the taxpayer. So in prime example, the situation out here, which you and I went through for well over a year trying to, rope in a few other entities, New York State, Department of Parks, Westchester County, and everyone was willing to help us except for the money aspect of it.
Right. Which, for those of you who don't know, we had a sinkhole form where a large drainage pipe would run right behind Town Hall over by the skating rink, or the skate park, excuse me. And there was a big sinkhole which was becoming a danger. We had to fence it off. And the land is leased by the county from the state and leased by us, and has this long chain of ownership that looks like a DNA molecule.
Yes.
And of course, there was everyone pointing the other way on.
It was one of those shell company deals.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone was pointing the other way when it came to the repair. So we were able to work with our highway crew.
Yeah, our guys did a great job out
They did a phenomenal job
job.
Really make it safe. And it took a while because it really wasn't our jurisdiction, and we needed to make sure that we had proper coverage. But thanks to the work of, although I do think they did something on, the county did
They had done a crossover underneath their path
Correct.
a number of years ago.
Okay, yeah.
Correct.
So they did.
We just had to go down to that manhole that was right on our side
And
of the
connect.
path.
Right.
Correct.
So that worked out great, and thanks to your department, we saved the taxpayer quite a bit of money from bringing
money.
someone in. So that's very much appreciated. So we spoke. You said drainage. You said catch basins. 5,000. For the people watching who may not know, what is a catch basin?
Well, we often get calls, and people say the sewer. The back is off the sewer. So in Yorktown, there are two separate different entities. One is stormwater, okay, which is the catch basins traditionally are on the side of the road, although you'll see some in the center of the road on the side in the roadway itself. For instance, when you come off of Granite Springs Road onto Quinlan, there's a what we call a flat top. It doesn't have a basin back on it. And then the round manholes in the middle of the road, those traditionally 99% of the time are sanitary water, which is sewers.
Right.
And never the twain shall meet.
So a catch basin catches the natural rainfall, snow melting. It could be water coming off of the roof of someone's house after a storm.
Water main break.
Water main break.
Yep.
Yep. And the sanitary sewer, which is actually a sealed system, hopefully,
Yes.
is when you flush your toilet, take a shower, run your sink at home. But those catch basins are mainly what are on the side of the road, and I know I've called you about quite a few of the ones that come out, and they start to collapse over years.
Yes, yeah. We last year we began the year with 160 that needed to be rebuilt, and they collapsed. They're concrete. There were bricks in there with mortar, and so and then you start the way you notice it is you'll see a little hole in front of it, and that hole progressively gets bigger and bigger to the point where a small dog could fall in there. So now I think we are down to 6 or 7 that we have to get to, and that's fabulous because it's a good day to 2 days, and you dig it out, you pull the frame and grate off. We have a vac tour, which is wonderful, worked out great with that ARPA money. That really was grant money from ARPA was federal, correct?
Federal money from COVID relief.
And that was a $550,000 piece of equipment, and now gives us the opportunity to maintain these catch basins. And we've been very vigilant about that, going around. And based on our involvement with the East of Hudson, we have a certain criteria that we have to meet every year, and it's sucking out those basins, making sure that there's no, phosphorus in there from runoff and what have you, right, from leaves deteriorating. So, so that the Vactor's been a tremendous piece of equipment for us, as well as using it for hydro excavating around utility lines and stuff. So that's that. And then recently, our number one priority has been trees. So today alone, I was out looking at 3 trees. That unfortunately a lot of trees are diseased in town. We have the emerald ash borer weevil that's killing all the ash trees, and the town has a lot of open space, over 5,000 acres of open space. And kudos to you and the board and the previous board, and Tommy and Matt, when you started putting in money to maintain those areas, because based on highway law, I cannot go into those, nor do I have the ability. I have a tree truck. I can handle anything on the road unless it's involving power lines. But to go into the woods and take down a tree, last year we spent $85,000 to take care of trees that had danger of falling on someone's home.
And let's back up a little bit for those at home. Why would you be responsible for a tree if it's on my property?
I would not. Well, it depends on whether it's your property or not. That falls under the right of way. And these rumors go about, these urban myths that, the town owns the first 5 feet of, from the road edge or the curb edge into your yard. That's totally incorrect. We have Westchester County GIS. You can go on that and find out see exactly where your right of way is. Your property line and our right-of-way begins. So oftentimes people will call. Prime example, we had one up in Countryside, and everyone was very concerned about it. It was not in our right-of-way, but it was hanging over the road. It was some dead limbs. We went up there and trimmed back everything that was over our road. Today, down on Barnes Lane in southern Yorktown, I was out there looking at a tree that, unfortunately, it was a pine tree, and when it got all the snow on it this last storm, it dipped into the road, and as the plow truck came down the road, it swerved to not hit the tree, but scraped up like 3 feet of somebody's front yard. So now we have to, what we call, lift the canopy on that tree, just get it up so when it drops, the truck can still get under there. We were doing one of those today over on Birdsall as well. So trees we spend a lot of time on trees, a lot of time on drainage. The catch basins catch the water, drops into a drainage pipe. Oftentimes, always, for the most part, people think there's a catch basin on either side of the road, and they both have, trunk lines that go along the side of the road. No, those are crossovers. So the main water line, carrying the waste stormwater is on this side of the road, and water coming down this side of the road goes into this basin and comes across the road. And that's a lot of problems because that pipe tends to rust, and then that's when you start noticing undulations in the road.
Yep. So those crossovers aren't great for us.
Well, they're not, but they're great for keeping water out of people's, yards and homes. And, and we do curbing, and we do paving, and we do We do, just preparing for winter. We were preparing for winter back in September already.
Right.
You know,
So Yorktown, I think, 41 square miles.
just about, yeah.
What does that translate into roads?
So we always say 400 lane miles of road. The actual figure is like 378, something to that effect, but we always round up. Sounds better. But yeah, about 378 lane miles of road. And some of them are very wide roads. Strang Boulevard, for instance, from by the mall there. That's a 42-foot wide road. That takes, even with our big trucks, it takes a few passes to clear that with snow. And then when you go, unfortunately, when you go to pave it, it costs twice what a 20-foot wide road cost,
Makes sense.
And then you add in, we've been very enamored of the country curbs, like is on Quinlan, and we had done that with a grant years ago from Senator Murphy when he was up in Albany. And we did that was the first place we did the country curbs, which you'll see they're beveled so that you don't have, when you put curb in that's square with the road like that, what happens is until there's a hard freeze, you hit one piece, and we call it the train wreck effect. It takes out 100 feet of curb. It just all buckles. If you ride down Quinlan Street, you'll look at those beveled curbs, country curbs, and you'll see that the plow rode up on them and didn't tear them up. So that adds about another 13% to the cost of paving a road.
So 13%. What does that equate to for a mile of road to put a?
Well, then, do you want to mill the road?
Well,
or do you want to overlay the road?
Let's talk about the country curb first.
Okay, so let's
Approximate. A mile.
Let's say a mile is the better part of, well, depending on, let's say a 30-foot wide road, a mile is approximately $160,000, so that would add another $20,000, give or
So
take.
about 20 grand on a mile of road.
But you need it. I mean,
Right.
when we did this neighborhood up here years ago, Summit Central Payne, all those side roads, we actually ripped out all the curbs that were there and did the whole neighborhood with country
I've
curb.
heard about that from my brother-in-law quite a few times.
What's that?
About his curb disappearing.
Yes, well, we got a country curb. It wasn't like we didn't replace it, but it was the curbing. Sometimes, if the curbing is really scroungy, all right, and you go and pave the road, it's like putting lipstick on a pig. It doesn't quite make the resident feel as happy about having their new road.
Sure.
Yeah,
So, but I wanted to say this. So 20,000 for a mile, and if we do the math and want to do all 374 miles, I think you said.
Well, let's say, but that's based on a full width, so it would be about 175 miles.
That's a lot of.
Yeah, that's $3.5 million.
Yeah.
Not bad if you say it quick.
A lot of scratch.
Yes, yeah, it is.
But I think that some of these numbers are lost on the public in that understanding of some of the challenges.
Well, I always maintained that, and even when I was on the town board, that people didn't understand when they got a tax bill, it was $10,000. I don't think they understood that only 1,000 of that is going to the town. Right. Because it's school taxes, it's EMS, it's this, that, and the other thing, all Westchester County taxes. Everything adds up. So if you think about it, you have a $10,000 tax bill. The town's getting $1,000. So what are you getting for $1,000? You're getting 2 awesome swimming pools. You're getting garbage pickup, some of them. You're getting a water department dedicated that, when you have a water main break, they're on it immediately. You're getting a highway department. You're getting your roads salted. Your roads plowed. You very rarely have to be in for more than 6-7 hours, given the worst storm.
Getting your building department, engineering.
Yeah, everything, yeah.
Your clerk's office, tax office, assessor's office.
Yeah, a beach.
How
Granite
many parks?
Knolls.
Yeah.
Granite Knolls.
Legacy.
Yep.
Lots of parks.
You get a lot for $1,000.
Yeah, I sort of got chastised once for saying it, but I do mean it. Our town does a great job on the limited dollars they get compared to other municipalities or taxing districts that our expenses are much different, granted, but there are definitely we do great work. Our department heads,
Well, and we have
and their teams.
Yeah, but we have in the years that I've been here, and this is my 13th year, we've done great in improving our commercial base. And people don't understand the commercial base. People criticize you give abatements or whatever the case may be. But the fact of the matter is, ultimately, that commercial base does not put that much more stress on our services, our police, certainly a little bit on the police department. More commercial means, more theft and things like that. But other than that, no burden on the schools, which is 74% of our tax bill. So yeah, it's years ago Yorktown had no commercial base, none.
Right.
Just look at TJ Maxx, look at Uncle Giuseppe's, look at the medical building across the street.
No, absolutely. There have been some great improvements, and it's funny because you have. For years, you had people saying, no one wants to go to Yorktown. You're never going to do anything. And some of those same people now are like, oh, my God, I can't park over at Uncle Giuseppe's. So I guess it's like the old yogi ism where, two chores closed because no one could ever get in.
Right.
It was too busy. No one could get in, so they went out of business. There's, and I say it all the time in the board meetings, there's a balancing act.
Absolutely.
It really is. And, you bring up the 45B tax exemption, which is an abatement on new taxes. And there's some people that will say, oh, well, the commercial is going to come anyway. This is not a commercial atmosphere.
Look, I'm not a big fan of residential development because it does burden. But just look at the Soundview School, prime example. Okay, that was a tax-exempt entity, if I'm not incorrect.
You are not incorrect.
Right? For quite some time. So now, whatever they're paying is more than they paid. Somebody made a substantial investment in the town. Of course, as a highway superintendent, I'm concerned about traffic, this, that, and the other thing, but apparently there are plans in place to alleviate that burden. And, it's thinking ahead that 10 years down the road, 5 years down the road, when all those people are paying full taxes, whatever the case may be, that would not have existed with what was there prior. And what was there prior, unfortunately, was deteriorating.
Yeah. No,
and like I said, I'm not a big fan of residential development.
Right. But we need, and once again, it's a balance. We need to look at what our community needs because we're a growing community and we have children of people that are looking for their own places. And, I think it's great that I know I could put my house on the market and it'll sell within 3 days
right.
above asking. But what does that do?
Where
for
am I
our
going?
kids? Yeah, well, not only there are places to go, but what am I doing for the
Not for
kids?
you and I. We live in Yorktown.
Well, yeah,
by necessity.
right. But when I retire,
right.
But what does that do for our kids? Unless I'm going to leave my house for my daughter and my son-in-law and say, move back to New York and you could live there. My son-in-law has a great job with the government. I can't afford to live there because the jobs that I would be able to get, I'd have to be in D.C., I'd have to be somewhere else.
Well, my two girls, one of them lives in Shrub Oak, which is wonderful, and the other one lives in Mayapack.
Yeah. So we do need to recognize, don't love all the residential, but when you're so many houses shy.
Yeah. And isn't the governor doing something now, insisting on 800,000 units or something to that effect?
Well, that's a whole other story.
That's a separate.
Where she wants to take away our right to zone property. So
right.
something like the Soundview, which has a bus stop right across the street, within a mile of transportation, they wouldn't even have to come to the town board, and they could put up 5-story buildings with the plan that she had. Yeah. It got voted down. It was actually. I find it kind of amazing that, it actually is something in Albany that had so much bipartisan agreement that it shouldn't be done.
Right.
Because I had gone to a couple of press conferences about it back when Matt was still our supervisor, I think, or we might have been just in the assembly. But, you're dealing with taking away whatever a town is and its whole nature. But, we digress from your thing. And
so, I'll talk about salt.
Okay.
Okay, so
not the salt tax.
Well, no, not the salt tax. I want that to be repealed. That would be very good for me. I'm sure it'd be very good for a lot of people in Yorktown.
Yes, and I will say we'll divert a little. I was watching something the other day, and there's the argument of why should New York get a discount because they're overtaxed. And Congressman Lawler had brought up, this was on...
Yes, he's been very active in trying to repeal that salt tax.
And this was one of the Sunday morning shows, Mornings with Maria, on Sundays, which it's a great financial show. And she was pressing him, like, why? You know, why should this happen? And his answer was, because New York on the federal level contributes more than they take, where some of the other people where they don't have the higher state tax rely on more federal support. And
so we're basically subsidizing other states.
Right. So where they're saying
That's
that they'd be subsidizing New York, they're really not. New York is paying it on the federal end. So, you know, it's a very good argument. Look, I'd love my New York state taxes to be lower too.
Yes.
So don't kid yourself. But I thought his argument was extremely.
And yeah, I applaud him for that. That he's been very active in that, and he's fully aware of the consequences to our taxpayers.
Absolutely.
You know, that you can't deduct more than $10,000 in your property taxes.
Yeah.
That's absurd
Yeah.
in Yorktown.
Trust me, I know.
You know, so. But
so
that's not the salt we were talking
not
about.
the salt. What salt were you talking about?
So we're talking about, like, this year's been a very interesting year thus far. We've been out 13 times, 2 minor snowstorms, 4.5, 5 inches last week, and the one before that was like 3.5, 4 inches. Not major issues, but we appreciate the fact that you and I have spoken about this. A very important thing for us. I digress because that's the way my brain works. I'm all over the place. Like that's why my nickname is Squirrel, because it's like, oh, shiny object. That being said, you and I have spoken about this because our options with respect to a snow event, the biggest concern is parking on the roads. I can name numerous cul-de-sacs that we couldn't get in. And, you know, kudos to our police department because we called them. They came out in the snowstorm and had those people move those vehicles so we could get into those cul-de-sacs. And the reason it's so important to get in is that after we work 20 hours on a storm, we're not coming back out. Because you moved your car, we're not coming back out to do your cul-de-sac because we're going home. They work 20 hours with a 2-hour break, and they got to get some rest, period. So we need to make sure that emergency vehicles can get into your little neighborhood or some of our smaller roads. You know, prime example has never been an issue, but Boone Road, if anyone were to park on the road there, nobody can get by. You know, but those residents are awesome. You know, they never do that. So, you know, you and I have been speaking about something interim, not necessarily a state of emergency or a snow emergency, some sort of a parking, not emergency, you know, the term.
Advisory, I think.
Advisory, right. We were speaking about where, okay, you can drive because it's not that bad, but you can't park on the road. You know, that's something that you and I have been working on, and, you know, certainly we'll be speaking with the chief about that, you know, because it weighs heavy on him because he becomes the enforcement arm of that, you know, so. But this time residents were really, really good, I got to say. They were, you know, we traditionally do a lot of mailbox damage, okay, and, you know, bear in mind we have 14,000 homes. Okay, so on average storm, previously we'd be, you know, a decent storm, 5-6 inches of snow, we'd be somewhere around 40 to 60 mailboxes that we take out, and oftentimes it's not a direct hit. A direct hit from one of my 1,100-pound plows, your mailbox is 10 houses down,
or,
you know,
or in the next county.
Right. It's usually slush coming off creates the windrow that hits a mailbox that's being held on by one rusty old screw or whatever the case may be. And this time we had a meeting. My deputy, Mike, brought everybody in, and we had a meeting and said, look, stay off the curbs. We don't want to go out in the spring and fix 10 miles of curb. Stay 3 feet off the curbs. Stay off the mailboxes. The problem with the mailboxes is the mailman cannot get out of the truck. So we always would try to plow right up to the curb. So now your big plow's going underneath the mailbox. That was a recipe for disaster. So now, as has always been the case, the residents are responsible for carrying that 2 feet to their mailbox. And they've been awesome. Nobody called and said, oh, you stayed too far off my mailbox. You know, our residents are very reasonable and very appreciative, I will say, of the work that we do at Highway, and it's not just Highway; it's all the other departments as well.
Absolutely.
You know,
Well,
and
look, Yorktown is a great town. It
yep,
really is.
we deal with any given storm has tens of thousands of different components to it. You know, what's the road temperature? What's the ambient temperature? What's the wind speed? What are the roads going to blow dry? What's the refreeze possibility? You know, how much salt do you put down to make sure if it refreezes overnight? And this last storm, they were talking about drifting. You know, snow drifting. So we wanted to make sure we had adequate material down. And we treat our salt with magnesium chloride. So instead of being effective to 30 degrees, it's effective to about 5 degrees. And we were below zero a number of nights.
So I did tell Bentley, my dog, my lab, that I would pick this up because he said, well, I don't understand, Dad. I get salt in my paws after these storms, and it looks like there's a lot of salt. What is the life of that salt? What is he? Why would there be enough on the road to go through the next day? And I think you sort of mentioned already.
Yes, that's because after a storm we deal with during a storm we deal with the hired plow people pushing snow out of people's driveways and across the road. Which, look, when I'm out and I see this, I've seen it at commercial buildings, I've seen it, and I just stop and say, listen, do me a favor. What you're doing is illegal. You can't push snow into the road. But as long as you just come back, spend an extra literally 10 seconds to just push it off to the sides. Don't leave this 2 strips of snow across the road. Because with the deep refreeze we were expecting, we did put an additional layer of salt down at the end, and it held for the entire week. We didn't have any problems. We didn't have problems with the school buses. We didn't have problems with anything. But, you know, that's why often the roads will look white. It's an anticipation of the next event or the next something that may be happening, a deep freeze like we did have below zero temperatures.
Sure.
Things
Well, even the last couple of days, we've had this heat wave in the
Yes.
high 30s.
Yeah, the freeze-thaw cycle.
Right.
Always
And
a treat.
And then the next day, it drops overnight, and the next day you wake up, and I have one of my gutters that drips onto the stairs. So I know to go out there and take care of that step because it's a sheet of ice.
Well, we tell people that. We try to tell them on our Facebook page, you know, beware of your steps, beware of your porch, beware of your walkways, because those things freeze first. Yep. And you know what? If it rains, and it was supposed to have some rain this week before they eliminated the possible snow on Saturday, but the rain could be worse, you know. And, you know, a lot of the things we deal with is manpower. Prime example, we have 7 trucks that are manned by the water department, okay? 4 big trucks and 3 550s, all salt trucks. And a lot of these events have been salting events because people say, well, it was only an inch of snow. You want me to leave it there? Would you like to wake up and see it?
Sometimes that's the most dangerous because you ride over it, it's so thin. It just
Well, that one
ice.
Monday we had the problem where it had rained, froze up on contact, and then dusted over. And everyone thought, oh, it's just a dusting. Well, no, it wasn't just a dusting. And if we lose the water department, which often happens during, you know, our events, unfortunately, they sort of coincide with a water main break. Sure. That's 7 trucks off the road. Salt trucks. That is a third of our actually a quarter of our capability. But that's delays our response time by 25%.
Absolutely. So I sort of want to get back to the parking issue.
Yes.
Because people are like, well, you know, you can't get in. What does it mean? And, you know, you hit a couple things there. You spoke about the police and first responders, and that's huge. I went to a Shiva call the other night, and it's a smaller road, and someone, you know, people were parking on the right side, but someone parked on the left. And I don't think they realized how tight that was just for my normal car. So if you think a plow is getting through there,
11-foot plow.
Yeah, we you know, you're going to lose your side view mirrors and half the paint off your doors.
Well, we saw that when you and I were out on Veterans Road when we were questioning that when Martin brought out the ladder truck.
Yep.
And we set it up, and it was from the curb over the double yellow line. So clearly we could not possibly have had parking on both sides there, and unless you went out there and actually, you know, did the test and see. I'm from Missouri, show me kind of guy, and you're like that also. You want to see it,
Yes,
you know.
the show me state.
Yes, the show me state. But yeah, I mean, there's people don't understand that some of these vehicles, like a couple of storms over the years, we've had to go out and, assist the ambulance corps because they were on a driveway that was literally a half a mile long off of Route 100 and on an estate, and they couldn't move.
Yep.
So we go out and we do, our best to get them going because that's a problem. You have somebody having, a medical emergency and that ambulance isn't moving. That's not a good thing.
And then I think we also have to make sure we are aware of neighbors that may or may not have to get out for work.
Yes.
Nurses, doctors, things that are high priority, first responders. And if it's not a snow emergency where places are closed, but just an advisory,
Right.
per se, on the parking, it is very important that.
Well, a lot of it is timing, too. The one we had, when was it, last Monday, was right in the middle of the day.
Yep.
It was prime at the afternoon rush hour, prime. And, we were out, but something like that, it takes us 4.5 hours to plow the town. It's a lot of miles, and it's only X amount of vehicles.
Yep.
So
we spoke about drainage. I don't think you spoke about, though, what actually will happen. So say you're doing my road, and what are some of the things you could be dealing with, seeing that would add to the expense? Like sometimes I see the machine ripping up the road.
Milling.
Yes.
Milling, I mean, under ideal circumstances, milling is wonderful. It's definitely the best way to go. I'm not saying it's the only way to go because that adds 33% to the cost of paving a road. So now you're up over $200,000 a mile.
What does it do for the life of the road?
It gives, what it does is it eliminates the surface cracking, which is, let's face it, the reason roads deteriorate are one of two reasons: poor subbase or, surface water entering from the surface, cracks in the road. That's why crack sealing is somewhat effective at maintaining roads. It's expensive and everything has its downside. It's like medicine. You take this, you got to take that. When you crack seal a road, it's very, it becomes somewhat dangerous for motorcycles. It's slick, that crack seal. But the milling is when we determine whether we're going to mill a road. Certainly, we would mill every road, but that would cut down by 33% the number of roads we can do in a given year. And budgeting is an important consideration. And you know what? I'll praise. I'm not here to blow smoke, but I'll praise you. You did an extra $1,250,000 last year in paving, which accomplished a tremendous amount. If that kind of money, and we know it can't be done every year, but if that kind of money were infused into the budget, we dropped down to about a 14-year schedule of replacement, which would be like among the top in the county, which is wonderful. So, we're always grateful for what we can do. But the milling, to add that 33%, like right now, you and I have been working on a 2-year plan to come out and say this is what we'd like to accomplish within the next 2 years. Our residents are reasonable. If you say to them, and you're a person of your word, you say, okay, these roads are going to get done this year and these roads are going to get done next year. That's barring any infusion of, winning lotto or whatever the case may be. They're understanding. And then we determine milling, some roads have to be milled because they're so alligatored and so checkered that, just throwing a 2.5 inch cap, compressed down to 2 inches isn't going to last. Also, tack coat. Tack coat is imperative. I mean, you need to glue that new road down to that old road, So, and that adds $2.75 a ton to the cost of paving. Everything adds up and has to be considered.
So you had also mentioned drainage, and sometimes when you're doing those roads,
yes,
you have to knock out the drainage.
Well, prime example, I was going over my list for the next 2 years, and the first roads I brought up required drainage. That the drainage is deteriorating. You certainly don't want to pave a road and then rip it up to do drainage. That's, penny wise and pound foolish.
And why wouldn't we just say, forget about the drainage? It's
because then the road will ultimately collapse. It might not happen, God willing, I'm here another 5 years, but you know what? It might not happen in my 5 years, but it's going to happen at some point. Right. And I know you feel the same way about it, is that we have to be judicious in our work that we need to leave a good foundation for someone else to come in once we're gone.
Our job is not to make it a patch job
Right.
for the present,
Correct.
but to do it right.
And not, we don't paint the roads. Go out and throw a half-inch asphalt on, and in 4 years it's all ripping up, and there's nothing you can do with it because, unfortunately, it's just delamination.
Yeah.
And there are municipalities that do that. Yorktown's always been good about paving their roads, correctly, or as correctly as was possible within budget. But
So
we've hit trees, we've hit catch basins. We talked a little bit about salt.
plowing.
Our recycling yard. Our recycling yard's a big thing.
There you go. That is great.
Yeah,
That-
that's huge. 2200 Greenwood Street. We have and we're one of the few municipalities in Westchester that actually has their own DEC regulated recycling yard that we run, and we take in material. We just spent $27,000 getting rid of a huge pile of 5,000 tons of logs that accumulate over time, and everything goes up there when water department has a break and they're digging up the road. That stuff ends up there, and I'm getting ready now to rent a 3-tier screener so that we can take that material that's up there, screen it out, and make a presentable, mix it with some leaf mulch that's had time to season, and give our residents a good topsoil that they have for free. And we do have wood mulch, we do have leaf mulch, which is great for your gardens. Residents can bring their leaves, they can bring brush up there. We have 2,700 people now that have signed up. We created a fast pass, in essence, where we did it during COVID, actually, because nobody wanted to roll down their windows. So they just show up to pass, and we have a master list spreadsheet that has everybody's name on it. So the person in the gatehouse just writes down number 2162 and leaves, brush, whatever the case may be.
So when is the recycling yard open?
Recycling yard is open seasonally from Monday through Saturday from 7:45 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. And we have opened it actually a number of years back when we had all those bad summer storms. We opened it on Sundays, and we got an award from Westchester County for providing the ability for people to remove debris and stuff from their homes. So usually when we closed it, December 7th was our last day, I believe, this year. And we open somewhere second week, third week in March, first week in April, depending on the weather, of course.
Of course. And you said you could pick up mulch and leaf mulch and
free.
Soil free.
Yep.
And
You can pick up millings if you need millings. What we do is by accepting the millings from the company that mills our roads, we save money by him not having to dispose of them, and it's substantial. And then we have them for our residents who may have an area that prime example, somebody out on Bolden Road, we've got to drop some off to that person because we overlaid that road because it needed to be raised up. And when we overlaid the road, he had a field next to his home, and now the road was higher. So once we can dig out the millings, we're going to bring him some millings to fill in there.
So you're segueing into my next thought, which is great. So I have a driveway of millings because I didn't want to have a impervious surface.
Right.
And I probably need some more millings. And sometimes I have work done at the house, and I need to get rid of the stuff.
Right.
I can't do a lot of the work I like to do in the past because of my back injury. So if I utilize a company like right now, I use Landcore.
Right.
That does my
Yes,
my
you
yard
can
work.
pick up millings. The only thing we would ask is that since we're very strict about commercial vehicles, because our concern is, and it's been working out quite nicely, our concern is weekend warriors, people who go out and do landscaping and things like that, and then use our tax dollars to benefit their personal business. But yeah, you would come down, we'd give you a permit, and you can go up there and have pickup millings if
So
you
you
want
can't apply for it. Do you apply at
At the highway department.
highway department?
Yes.
Down on the corner of Front and Underhill?
Yes.
And then you go up. And do I have to go up to the yard, or would my contractor be?
No, people come in and get permits for their contractors to bring up things, they're clearing out their yard or whatever. We have a lot of frequent flyers, people that come in all the time, and they want to get rid of their leaves. They want to have them bring them up, whatever the case may be. Their brush, they're cleaning out an area of their yard, and the only thing we don't take is, we won't take stones. It's an organic facility, so everything has to be biodegradable to some respect.
I remember quite a few years back, but I had to clear out a bunch of those viney, thorny things that were invading my entire yard, and a friend helped me with his trailer, and that was before my back injury, so many years ago.
Yep.
So I was able to take that out, and it was great. Very much.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to screening out the pile that we have up there and coming up with some really good topsoil. The way we screen now, it's a small little screener, and it's the screens are this big, so a lot of plastic and stuff goes through there, and people said, Dave, the mulch is wonderful, but there's all these pieces of plastic in there. I'm like, well, if we had a proper screener, which is a $800,000 piece of equipment, it's hard to justify that expenditure when you can bring somebody in and do it as necessary.
So you did mention something that made me think, and maybe there's something for our residents that could help save them if we have them. But you said you had a lot of logs.
Well, we had giant logs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you thinking of firewood?
Yeah.
Yeah, that thought crossed my mind. I had thought about some of the smaller logs, buying a log splitter, but now I would have to assign somebody to do that. And then the problem is you worry about liability. People often ask, can I come in with a chainsaw and cut up some logs? We prefer that you don't do that. God forbid something happens, on town property. And, I tend to worry a lot. Like you, I was in the restaurant business and, been through a few lawsuits and, don't enjoy it too much. And, certainly don't want to burden the taxpayer with a legal settlement just because,
of course,
I'm not like, oh, it's not my money, it don't matter. It's my money. It's
Well,
and
one of the good things about running for office in a municipality is you have to live in the municipality. So
you have a different sense of responsibility towards the residents.
Of course,
no question. You're paying taxes in that.
Usually, your
community.
Family is. My mother-in-law has a house in the community. My brother-in-law has a house in the community. We have a house in the community. So
yeah, it's people often say, well, DPW is a bad word down at Highway. My executive assistant Ann's like, we're not a DPW. We're a highway department. The difference is we answer to you, period, So,
which is a good thing.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing.
Really
I think, being accountable to the taxpayers is, it's what allows you to sleep well at night.
That's what I always say. You make the decision that you feel is the best decision, and you can go to bed at night.
Yep.
When you start playing around, you get a lot of sleepless nights.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, no, we and knock wood. I think we have a lot in our town. Now, do you ever other than plowing? Because I know you mentioned that. Do you ever work with other departments on things?
Yes. We'll loan equipment to other departments. We actually just traded a mini excavator, which was quite old, like 20 years old, 18 years old, to the water department for 2 plow trucks that we're going to take the 2 plow trucks and together we can make 1 plow truck out of it. So, yes. And then we...
as long as you didn't trade it for Jimmy Morgan and a player to be named
right,
later.
We actually, I spoke to Phil regarding a Mack Packer that he's looking to get rid of, something that we would consider because it's pre-emissions, it's pre-regen, where it's got to regenerate to make all the smoke, so it runs cleaner, but it makes smoke while it's doing it. That being said, he had a Packer that we were interested in taking it and either making it another roll-off or making it into another 10-wheel dump truck. But this Packer had it had issues that were not simple. So there was another one that he's probably going to be getting rid of because I think he's trying to get two Packers.
We did budget for 2 because our residents love our trash days.
Yes.
They love the leaf pickup. They love the Christmas tree pickup.
Yep.
And once again, these are some of the services that come. It was funny because I had a friend who lives in town say, well, what can you do about our taxes? Because we did have to take a raise this year on our taxes for the first time in 5 years.
Yeah, but that was
$9.24 a month to the average homeowner.
Right.
So a trip to Dunkin' Donuts with a bagel and a coffee.
one trip to Starbucks with nothing.
Well, at least the coffee.
Well, yeah, just the coffee. Yeah.
Right. So
No, that
So
I always said that people don't understand that, as we spoke about earlier, that only $1,000 of their tax bills going to
But
the
the funny
town.
thing is, from my point of view, I said, I'll tell you what. Tell me what you want me to cut.
Right.
And we'll cut it. So you want me to cut your police? No, don't cut my police.
Right.
Do you want me to,
Cut your highway department?
Yeah. Do you want me to cut the plowing in the road? No. Our roads are great. Don't cut that. I don't want to. So I just went down a list of things, and finally he
Pools?
was like,
You want me to close the pools? You want me to close the
"You want any
parks?
parks?"
Yeah.
Well, I'd be careful. You might get some people who say that.
Well, yeah.
But no. You know what? Our parks, their property value.
We don't serve the silent majority.
No, no. We serve
sometimes the vocal minority. We serve the silent majority.
And we're a family community. If you don't have parks and things to do, and we have a ton of outdoor activity.
Yes.
I speak to someone who lives in Rye, and she's like, "Oh my God, my kids would love it up here." You can't get on a field because most of their big property is the country clubs.
Yeah.
So if you can't join the country club, they have a couple of really nice parks, but nowhere near the volume.
Well, hopefully we're not losing Playland.
Hopefully. We'll see, though. Well, that's they did say they're going to open. I saw something about it.
Yeah, I was just reading about that myself. I mean, gosh, we all went to Playland when we were kids.
Yes.
And I was a kid a long time ago.
Yes. Actually, I heard you had to wait 2 years till they built the Dragon Coaster
Right.
so you could go on it.
I had to wait 2 years till I was tall enough to reach the dragon when I could go on it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Funny the things you remember.
Yes. I remember they had this ride that spun around at the bottom dropped out.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Oh my God, that was awful. I don't like going around.
No, I don't. I never cared much for those. I remember when I would take my girls, if we'd be down at Universal or something, we'd, come on, Dad, we're going on the roller coaster where you're just like hanging there, and I'm like, what are you, insane? Absolutely not.
Yeah. I have some fond memories from Playland as a kid, and hopefully York County and the vendor are able to work things out, or we find someone who could get it done. There's a lot of finger pointing.
Yeah, there is a lot of finger pointing. I've been reading a lot about it.
But once again, this goes back into taxes, the cost of things,
and what do you want to give up?
Yeah, and what do you want to give up?
And when was the last time we had a tax raise?
Oh, we actually in the last 5 years, I think we actually had cut taxes twice and had a couple of flat years or 2 or 3 flat years, and then of course this year we had to do our expenses are getting out of control.
But I remember, when I was on the board, and that was, like I said, that was 13 years ago, and I remember that first year we were cutting taxes, and I remember there was another board member, and he said to me, Dave, don't vote for this budget. And I'm like, why not? And he said, because this is going, if you cut taxes, keep taxes at 1.99%. He said, if you cut taxes, then the levy changes. And then when the levy changes, your tax cap changes. And you, unfortunately, ended up at the point where you were, I'm not incorrect, under a 1% increase that you were allowed to still maintain staying within the tax cap.
Right. Let's put it this way. The salary requirements that had changed because of the contracts would have broken the tax cap.
Right.
So,
we weren't even in the first 10 or 20 in the county of the municipalities that blew the cap.
No.
I mean, it was just,
well, actually,
we used to, I mean, my feeling was we used to be incentivized to do that because you'd get a check in the mail for $1,200, if I remember correctly, and I'm like, wow, this is cool. But the last 5 years, I don't think we've ever gotten anything.
I don't think it's 5. I think it's 2 or 3 that but they eliminated it. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
But look, the incentive is we don't want to raise taxes.
True.
The reality is that everything's more expensive. Look at insurance.
insane.
Whether it's a medical insurance, liability insurance, the vehicle insurance. New York State, highest motor vehicle insurance in the country, and it's going up because it sort of lags behind inflation. So all the years of inflation inflated the price of cars. So now the insurance companies are getting claims, and instead of it being a $28,000 car,
Right, it's a $70,000 car.
yeah, or 40, 50, whatever for that, because the car prices have gone crazy. When I bought my vehicle for my business, it was $78,000. The next year it was $125,000.
Well, we see it with the vehicles we're buying.
Yes, absolutely.
Same thing. You know, 10 years ago, one of our six-wheelers was $235,000. Now they're $375,000.
And we're not even getting to ambulances and fire engines and, multi-million
It all
dollars.
goes up. Everything goes up.
So unfortunately, we are, we're battling a lot with that. I think your department does a phenomenal job with the budget and the money and making sure the work gets done. And
We try.
And I want to make sure our taxpayers understand exactly what we do with those departments and the tax money, because it's part of that transparency.
Yep.
But there's everyone can look and say cut, but when you ask them, what do you want to cut? What do you want to give up?
Nobody has an answer.
Right. And people talk about bloated government. I know a lot of our departments run thin on purpose from what we can run, what we used to run.
Yes.
Because we're trying to save that money for the taxpayer.
Well, or save that. The way I look at it with my department is whatever money I could save. All right. Yes, I'm saving it for the taxpayer, but I'm also doing it within my department. I'm recognizing what, now, unfortunately, with supply chain issues, which still exist, we had a company we had ordered 3 trucks from for almost $1 million, and they actually called us up when we were expecting them in the spring. They called us in February of last year and said, "Oh, nobody ever wrote that up," and we had a purchase order. And because they obviously had gotten the trucks in, somebody offered them more money for them because of supply and demand issues. And then we had to start all over again. I had to fly out to Chicago to buy 3 trucks.
I remember that.
I mean, that's absurd, but I needed the trucks. I knew they were somewhere in the country, I wish they were in Hawaii. It would have been a little better for me, but
Yeah, but you'd have to hold your breath a long time to drive it back.
That's true. I didn't drive them back. We shipped them actually, but no, it's I'm proud of the job my people do. They give 110%. They work hard. They'll go out and when we've been out when nobody else is out. Some of the summer storms when you had poles down everywhere, trees down everywhere. The same as the winter. We're out there with our giant loaders with claws on them, picking up trees and putting them on people's lawns to make the roads passable for emergency vehicles. So yeah, we take our jobs very seriously. We do realize that in some ways we're the first line of defense in public safety. If we didn't go out there, it would be a hard time for everybody else to move around.
I remember we've had some doozies of storms over the years.
Oh, gosh.
With power lines down.
I could show you pictures and make your skin crawl. It's like, oh, my Lord.
We had one of our police officers trapped in a car.
Yeah. Yes, down on off of Ellington Road not on Blinn, on the little road that cuts through. I'm drawing a blank now. But yes, right there, tree on either side.
Right, and I know from experience, especially over the last year when we had that big storm that came through that took down a whole bunch of stuff, especially over by Greenwood.
Yes, yep.
I was talking to some of the power line workers and how much they rely on our crews to get out there once they kill the power to take those trees out, get it ready. And
yeah, that's the way it works with the utility companies is anything storm related, highway will clean up. Their scheduled maintenance, that's on them.
Right.
But the other thing we didn't mention is what we do is we do street lights and we do signs and we do, we have traffic lights that we're responsible for. So, for instance, if you see a street light out in your neighborhood, we maintain the Con Edison streetlights, but we will orchestrate the NYSEG streetlights. In other words, so if you see a streetlight out, it's a tremendous help because I try to go out at least once every few weeks, but it's hard because it's got to be dark. So I'm out there driving and my head's hanging out of the window and I'm trying to see them. So I'm actually just ordered for all my foremen these amazing lights that are remote and they spin around and they shine up and down and every which way. Because when we're out doing a tree, and it's usually in inclement weather, somebody calls, there's a tree down here. Is it on the wires? Can we see if there are wires involved? Do we know? Are we going to be touching a tree that's, possibly energized?
Sure.
So, this will help me out. They're like, well, do you want one too? I'm like, of course I want one. I'm the guy that's got to go out and look for the street lights that are out. And, I can't see them because it's dark. So it's, we're always trying to improve. We just finished redoing all the plow lights on our trucks. Well, not quite finished, but, and it's expensive. It's, they're almost $1,000 a set. But what's most important? Most important is safety. If you can't see well when you're plowing in the middle of the night and you've been at it for 5, 6, 7 hours, and you and I have spoken about the road striping that, this year we're going to pay special attention to that because even if we're not able, as you and I talked about, even if we're not able to repave a road, restriping a road makes it so much more safe, So
absolutely, especially those fog lines.
Yeah, the fog lines are measurably helpful. But what does a fog line cost? For $1,500 a mile, one line. $3,000 a mile for the double yellow line. So, it's everything is an expense.
Oh no, absolutely.
But I always say you can't put a price on safety.
Well, I've said it 1,000 times. Tommy used to say it. It's safety first. If you save one life, I remember
priceless.
Right. I remember one of the board meetings when we budgeted to have a police officer in the room. Look, the world we live in, you got to worry about active shooters. You have to worry about a lot of different things. So we have an officer at every meeting, and I remember one of our residents who served in public office was like, well, I don't understand why you need to spend that money. Nothing's happened yet.
Yeah. Well, too late when it's happened.
Right. And that's one of the things that I think is some of the great thinking of all of our people in departments is let's not wait till it's a problem.
Well, it's like when we do the festivals, when we close the road. All right. Prime example. I put the 2 dump trucks out there, and I did that years ago. And I did that in response to a tractor trailer that had gone through an event in France and mowed down a bunch of people. And I said, I can't, somebody could get speed up here, get down there and plow through those little barriers aren't stopping anybody. No. And, the road is curb to curb people. So those trucks are out there filled with gravel and you'd be hard pressed to push those out of the way.
Yes, you would.
But it's little things like that. I don't think anybody realizes it. Nobody says, they thought this was a good plan.
And it doesn't even necessarily have to be terrorism. I was out in California at Santa Monica. And Santa Monica, they have the pier there, but they also have a great farmer's market. And this is going years back. So Cal and I were out there. We went to the farmer's market. We come back home the next week. About the same time we were there, same day, an older lady lost control of her car and drove right through the farmer's market.
Well, don't you remember one of the parades? Somebody came right out by where the, just as that little area there, right where it makes a turn onto Commerce Street at the top by the firehouse, right there. Yeah. Car just drove right out into the middle of the parade. Didn't know where they were going. Didn't black out or anything. Just, it happens.
Right. Oh, yeah. We had a woman drive through Papoose Wall.
Yes.
Okay, started the car, went to put it in reverse, put it in drive. Right.
It happens.
Yeah. So, once again, it's safety first, and
always.
We look at what we could do, and you're right, Feast of San Gennaro, which I think they picked a weekend for.
Yeah, I was looking at that today.
For this year, so.
And the Fam Jam.
Fam Jam is coming up. Absolutely. That is, I want to say, May 11th, the Saturday before Mother's Day. So that's nice. You get a nice family outing, and then Mother's Day.
Is that the Saturday before Mother's Day?
It is.
Isn't Mother's Day the second Sunday? Yes. Duh.
There you go.
Did I have a restaurant for?
I don't know.
For a number of years, was Mother's Day like one of the biggest days of the year?
I wouldn't know. I only spent 40 years in the restaurants.
Now all I know about is trees and asphalt.
There you go. So I think I'm surprised I haven't heard the man behind the curtain saying it's
the wizard.
Yes, But I think we've been going about an hour now.
Well, good. I think it went quick, and I think we touched
did.
base on a lot of important things that it's important for our residents, particularly with an influx of new residents that don't realize how government works and the things that we do provide.
And Dave, I assume that that your email is on the town website, like everyone else.
Yes.
But I hope your emails divert to Ann so we get things done.
And yeah, and a shout out too about the new phone system.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my God, that was long overdue. I remember, like I said, I remember talking about that 13 years ago. Holy cow.
Well, I said there are quite a few projects that have been lingering around that I wanted to make sure I got taken care
Yeah,
of.
and it's nice because people, my biggest concern was I always liked the fact that highway, we always consider ourselves very service oriented. And my concern was that people called and had to press for this, that, and the other thing. But we actually addressed it. So now the phone will ring 4 times. And if we don't, it'll ring everywhere. If we don't pick it up within those 4 rings, then it will prompt you to leave a message for whomever you want to leave a message
Well, when they
for.
first started, I must say my office was a little upset at me, even though it wasn't me. But it was if you could press 0 and people would save time and press 0, and that actually went into my office.
Oh, okay.
So my office staff got very busy doing that. But there is a nice thing. And
Yeah, it worked. There were some little bugs to iron out, but yeah, it's one major improvement. It's like coming into a new millennium.
And we will keep working on projects like that. We are about out of time.
Yeah, and we actually we're installing the radios.
Yes.
Finally, in all our trucks. That thanks to the police department for the radios they provided to us, and we supplemented it with a bunch of new radios, and that's something that I've been working on for years and years and years. So I'm really excited about that.
Needed.
Yep.
Well, Dave, I thank you for your time. I know there was projected snow today, but I don't think it's happening. But
No.
the wind is out there.
Wind advisory till 10 this evening.
Right. So, and what's today is Wednesday, the 29th of
And
January.
and if a tree does come down and you have an issue like that, always call the police department, and they will always notify highway, and we will make sure we take care of it immediately.
Right. Well, thank you all for tuning in to
Thank you.
Yorktown, and have a great weekend coming up. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.